Yes, okay, great. Sorry, I'm not really used to online presentation. Um, so Mars, outreach team Mars means movement and action for health and social recovery. It's part of the Public Mental Health Service and was created in 2005 as an experimental project to find answers with and for people who are facing homelessness and severe mental illness, and permit access to healthcare, mental health care in particular, housing, and global citizenship for those people. We're based in Marseille. The city of Marseille happens to be a rather difficult territory for homeless people, with a very tense housing market, very aggressive city policy towards homeless people, even if there is some recent change in the city hall, so it's already had some positive impact. But most of the services provided for homeless people are supported by associated network. The strength of this network is that there is a strong harm reduction tradition in Marseille. The people we work with face a very complex situation. They have extreme living condition, mental health issues, addictions. A lot of them have also physical health issues. And most of the time, they're very isolated and far away from health and care institution and any institution in general. Or they experience to face institutions who feel very powerless in front of the combination of their specific needs. They, of course, experience very strong stigma. The large majority of them also have faced a lot of traumatic experience, such as physical abuse, sexual abuse in early childhood or more recently. Also institutional violences, especially for those who have been through childcare, child welfare, and also through psychiatric institutions. We know that the duration of the difficult social condition and also the duration of untreated mental health issues are very important prognostic factor in recovery. So for us, the youth is a population for which there is a particular emergency to find some appropriate answers to their needs. How do we work? So the underlying idea of our project is that mental illness has to be understood within the individual's social, cultural, and economic environments in a broad political frame, and also, as was said before this morning, linked to the social determinants of someone. The key elements to to bring this value in our practice is outreach practice, and the fact that we go and meet people where they are and daily witness their real living condition. Another key point is the integration of peer workers and also researchers in social science, public health, to build answers that are in line with people's needs. Our work is also guided by recovery-oriented model. And here again, the presence of peer workers is essential in all kind of action to really embody the values of empowerment and recovery. So peer workers are implied in our daily work with the people we support, but also in various kind of projects. So of course the Housing First project, Working First project, which propose support and employment for people with severe mental illness. They also support peer groups such as hearing voice network groups, and also a recovery college, which was now built a few years ago in Marseille, called the COFOR. Also a respite place based on a Soteria model, which is an alternative option to hospital to welcome people who go through psychotic crisis. So we really peer workers are really implied in any stage of experimental project, in the practice, in the research work, in the evaluation, to stick the best as possible to people's needs. So following the philosophy that the person is the one who knows best what is good for them, we try to work in a horizontal model of relationship, respect people's priorities and rhythm. Traumatic experience very often lead to various coping strategies, such as very different coping strategies, such as, for example, avoidance of any contact, or aggressive behavior, or drug use, self-medication. Our first task here is, of course, non-judgment, but even more is to consider these strategies as adaptive answers to very extreme negative experiences, and to consider the strength and the meaning that underlies these strategies. To support this practice, we use various tools. So I'm going to say a bit more about these concrete tools. So harm reduction, of course, strength-based approach, psychiatric advanced directive, and open dialogue. About the strength-based approach, was developed by a team at the University of Kansas School of Social Work. So the approach has its roots in social work and was developed as an alternative to the deficit-based model that was and continues to be predominant in the field. And the philosophy of the strength-based approach has much in common with the recovery model and is very helpful in the mental health field. So the principles are the following. We focus on the strength of the person, and rather than on the difficulties and pathology. It's the person who is in charge of the helping process. She's the one who gives the direction that the service will take. The relation between the person and the professional is essential and articulated around trust and empowerment. The community and the network of the person is seen as an oasis of resources. And so the interaction takes place in the communities as close as possible to all these resources. And consider, of course, that any person can recover and has a capacity to transform their life as they want to. So you can see how this principle fit with recovery model. And the method relies on the joint evaluation of people's strength through a strength assessment document, which is used as a base to explore individual strength. So personal qualities, skills, talents, competencies, interests, aspirations, and the environmental strengths, research of environment, social network, and opportunities. Of course, it's not easy. It's a really radical change from what we are used to and from what a lot of us are trained to focus on people's problems, symptoms, pathology. But training with this approach and using it more and more, it really transformed our own way of approaching problems, and I'll help people to transform their own view on their problems and their strength. Um, the other part of the work is the elaboration of a personal recovery plan. So it's also a written document we use together with the person, in which he or she can plan in a very precise way what she wants to do, how she wants it, and with who she wants to do it, following her own rhythm. And this document becomes the guideline of the joint work between the person and team. And the feedback the workers give is the basis of the reinforcements of coping strategies. So the method is based on a few very simple documents. We work together. The difficult part of it is really training, using it, and focus on strength. Another tool we are using and actually involving in research in Marseille, but also in different cities in France, is Psychiatric advenced directive. In some countries, this type of documents are legal documents, which are part of people's medical file. It's a tool used to prevent compulsory mental health care or to guide it if at one point it is needed. It's a document that describes what a person wants to happen if at some point their mental states enable them to decide for themselves or to communicate effectively. So it informs others about what treatment they want or don't want, from what psychiatrist they want to get care, or from what psychiatrist or institution they don't want to get care. It can identify a person who can be professional or family or person of the network to whom they are given the authority to make decision on their behalf if they can't anymore. So actually, right now in Marseille, these documents are being integrated in people's medical file. They're not legal yet, but we are working on it. And beyond that, it's a very interesting tool to work with people on past crises and think about their strengths, what they've learned from this crisis, and how we can prevent to um, uh, go through compulsory healthcare again, and if it's needed, how we can take lessons from the previous crisis and do it better this time. The last thing I wanted to talk about is not exactly what we can call a tool. It's open dialogue, which is a new approach built in the early 80s in Western Lapland. They were facing very high rates of psychosis, and so I had to think about a new way of answering these problems. It's a psychotherapeutic answer to any kind of mental health crisis, which has its roots in family therapy. So here, it's not a tool, not a technique, as it said, but more way of thinking and relating to other people and the world. The principal values are equality and democracy and respect of every word, every voice, what is called polyphony. So every voice has to be heard, even voices and that are qualified as psychotic. every crisis is seen as an opportunity. There is meaning in so-called madness, and symptoms are seen as resources. The danger of medicalization and psychiatrization of symptoms is that we lose the sense of the symptom and the resource that can be in them. And the principle of transparency, so the fact that we don't talk about people or their families when they're not present. The treating and the psychotherapeutic process is going on with people while they're there. They're the first one interested in the process. So everything happens with them. So it's both a philosophy and a way of organizing services based on 7 main principles. The idea is provision of immediate help. That means that when someone calls for help, there has to be a quick response. In a social network perspective, nobody's isolated, and even if in our work we're confronted with a lot of people who are isolated, in time we always manage to find some people they're related with. It asks for a lot of flexibility and mobility. When people can come, we go to them, and also psychological flexibility and mobility to adapt to people's needs. Responsibility. The responsibility is shared between the team members and the person. The treatment goes on as long as needed. It asks for a certain tolerance of uncertainty, which is maybe the most difficult point, especially when we talk about people who already are in a condition where there is a lot of uncertainty. But the idea here is that the therapeutic team doesn't have the answers. The answers, it's the person who have the answer, and we're here to facilitate that. And through dialogism, that means that creates a secureful and trustful relation where dialogue is possible, and when at some points we manage to create a space where the answers will eventually come. So we're actually training, our team is actually training in open dialogue, which is now a new approach, but which fits very good with what we already use in our practice based on recovery and strength-based approach. In Finland, open dialogue is not an alternative to psychiatry. It's how their psychiatric system is organized. Their institution repose on this approach. In Marseille, 4 teams are now training, and slowly we try to think about how we can apply the model in our context. So this was what I wanted to share with you.
Thank you so much, Charlotte, for presenting these different ways of working, which you also said are complementary to each other. And I will give now the floor to Holly. Before we break for a coffee break, Holly is our last presenter. She's a social worker and has been working for the Impulse Academy, and she's going to talk about the Dutch strength-based approach, HOVAST, if I pronounced it correctly. The floor is yours, Holly.
Okay, hello. My name is Holly. I've been a social worker for years. I don't have a presentation. I just heard yesterday or day before that I'd be able to do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to illustrate what the strength-based approach means in practice. Charlotte has told us about the strength-based model. I will repeat the principles. Basically, how fast is based on the strength-based approach. How fast is the Dutch variant if we're talking about homeless young people? So what I thought I'd do, since I do not have a PowerPoint, I'd like to share a few of my clients, young people, with you all, and I will ask you to put in the chat, just write it in the chat, the strengths you hear about this person. Why is that? Because strength-based model is also a very intuitive approach. What do you hear? What touches you in this young person? So first I'll introduce Johnny. And Johnny is a 17-year-old. He left his home because there were all kinds of problems and violence and everything like that. Johnny has been homeless for months. And in all these months, Johnny has not had to spend a single night in the streets. He has a network of friends. He has a network of family members. He can also strangers. He's never had to spend a single night in the street. What strengths do you hear? What is Johnny good at? Put it in the chat. I see emotional intelligence, ability to relate to others. Great. He's resourceful. He has friendships. He's resilient. Relational intelligence. He's adaptive. Right. He builds relationships with others. That's exactly what this model is about. What do you hear? What are the strengths? And how can we put that into the care for helping Johnny? He has the ability to inspire trust. Strangers will take him home. Of course, he'll have to make adaptations at time. He'll have to leave in the middle of the night and go to another friend. But what are his strengths that we could build on? I'll present now Hakim. Hakim has been homeless for a year. And Hakim, in the first few months, sleeping here and there. And now he's living with a cousin, his cousin, who has a wife and a child. And Hakim sleeps on the sofa at their house. He's been doing it for the past 8 months. What do you hear? What are the strengths you hear in Hakim? He's trustworthy, right? More. What else do you hear? He's respectful, very, very, very well, Gaynor. He knows how to adapt to change, but Gaynor said he's respectful of a family structure. It's really, really important that we, the social workers, the caregivers, have the ability to see that. Family, he forms relationships with respect, he sustains relationships, he can keep on going, but it's really important to see. My discussion with him is, Hakim, you've been living there for 8 months, they haven't kicked you out. That means you're doing something really, really good. Why is it so important for Hakim to have this conversation with me? Because his self-image, somebody living on the street for a long time usually has a very low self-image. I have to build up his trust. I have to build up his trust in others, but also in himself, if I want to help him. So I also see more strength. He has supports. He's able to call out for help. You see exactly what I'm talking about. The care worker has to be able to find the strengths, because those are the tools we will use to help him on in his life. Now I'm giving you another one. I called him Peter. What are Peter's? Peter's been homeless for a year. He has only slept outside for a year. He'd be like 19 years old. He's only slept outside. He does not want to impose his problems on others. He's extremely proud. He doesn't want his family to know that he's living in the streets. But and he wants to solve his problems on his own. What strengths do you hear that could help us? What are the tools that could help Peter? Come on. He's independent, yes, definitely. He's proud, but what else do we hear? He's determined, he's self-reliant, he's resilient. He's confident in himself, he's kind. Jackie, he's kind. What do you mean by kind? I love that.
Hi, what I mean is he doesn't want to impose on others. So he's like, I want them to look after themselves. So I'll just kind of keep it to myself, which shows kindness, even though I think he should go and ask for help, but it shows kindness. Of
course. And that's the main thing. He comes to ask for help with me, but he comes to ask for help from the professionals, but he does not want to impose on his friends. He's clever, he's intelligent, he's adapted, he's strong-willed, he's thoughtful. Peter took me to a tour of the city through his eyes. And that means he'll show me places like underneath the post office in Utrecht City, there's this air vent which blows out warm air from the air conditioning all day. He says, if ever you need a place to sleep, Holly, you can always come sleep here. Nobody will see the wall and you'll be warm because I have central heating. That's his world. Of course, he needs to ask for help, but I need to see him as someone who wants to solve his own problems. I'll give you a last one, and this is Betty. Betty might be a bit more of a problem because Betty is also homeless. She's like 18. She lives at different people's homes for sexual favors. She'll give sexual favors for a pack of cigarettes or for a meal. She'll go home with them. She does not see herself as a prostitute. She says donnant, donnant, like Charlotte would say in French. She will do something and ask for something in return. Betty also will, let me see, what else does she do? She knows when, she says she knows she can trust this person, or she also knows this situation is dangerous, I have to go home. What are the strengths that you hear in her? I hear from Carmel, she's vulnerable. Carmel, they are all extremely vulnerable. Let's face that. They are all very vulnerable. What do we, she's pragmatic, Sabrina says, definitely. She has a low regard of herself. Does she really? In her worldview, the only thing people want of her is the only thing she has to offer. That's her balance. She's resourceful, she has bargaining skills, socially intelligent, she has some control. Now, I've worked with young prostitutes, I've worked with teenage prostitutes for a long time. Each and every one of them has boundaries. Some girls will say, nobody's allowed to touch my left breast. That one's for my boyfriend. And the work with them, it's very sad. Of course, I want to get them out of the prostitution. And of course, I'll get the family, I'll get the friends, mobilize everything to get her out of the situation. But as far as my work with her is concerned, we explore the boundaries, we explore the things she has done to keep herself safe. And it's really important to see it. It's important that we see them as resilient, strong people who are able to actually at some point take control of their life. Money oriented, is this how she knows best how to make money? It's the easiest way, I guess. Does she like sex? Actually, I never asked her if she likes it. It's a really good question, I should have. This point is, we're looking at the strengths of people coming to us. I give the training all over Holland, and it's based on the strength-based model. Charlotte has walked you through all of the, all of the basic principles, but what does it mean in practice? I'd like for you to put me back in gallery view that we can all see each other, because I'm going to walk you through the principles one by one. And I'd like for you to put your hand up if you agree, if you can find yourself in this principle. Can you make gallery view that we see more people?
It should be on now. I've ended the spotlight, but I think people need to turn their cameras on as well to participate.
Okay, but no, view, let me see, gallery. I'll put it on gallery. Here, I see everybody. I see a lot of people. What we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through them. And I'd like for you, if you agree, if you can find yourself, it's not rocket science, I want you to put a hand in the air through the chat or the reaction. The basic principle of how fast, or of strength-based principle, we believe that people can recover. We believe that everyone has the ability to grow and to learn and to change. I want to see everybody's hand. Come on. Okay, there are a few things necessary. I see hesitation by Stephen Allen. Where are you? You didn't put a hand up. I want to see it loud and clear. Come on.
I want to know what you want me to put my hand up for. Sorry, I missed a little.
Okay, we'll do it again. Basically, with this method, we believe that everyone has the ability to grow and to learn and to change. And we have to get a consensus on that. There are a few things I have to offer it to the person. I have to offer him choices, and the person has to accept it. But basically, that is the core of everything we do. I believe that the person can recover. And I see a lot of hands. Thank you, guys. The second principle, hands could go down, hands back down. The second principle, we believe that each person is responsible for his own recovery. Each person, like Charlotte said, each person knows best what is good for him. Do you believe that? Every single homeless youth, they do make bad choices. We agree with that. But everyone will tell me, don't you dare do that again. That does not work for me. Don't put your arm around me when I'm upset, or you have to hold me if I'm upset. We believe at the end of the day, even though young people, like everywhere, make wrong choices, we believe they do know there is, what is best for him or for her. Can we agree on that? I see someone who says, I can't hear you, there's technical issues. I'm sorry, Anita. But okay, I do see a majority of hands in the air, at least that's what I see on my screen. I wish we had longer time to have your questions and all that, but basically, you do not ask a young person, what kind of help do you need if he's in a crisis? Sometimes I have to take charge. You are coming with me now, you're gonna have a meal, a bed, and I'll talk to you in 3 days, and then we'll make a determination. In the middle of a crisis, he's not able to make choices. I bring him back to the point where he can, but then he makes choices. I can determine you have to go back home because your mom needs you to live with her. If he says, no way, Jose, that's not going to happen. He has the right to make certain choices. We agree on that. It's not rocket science. I want to walk you through them. The next one, I see a heart. Thank you so much. The next one, the third principle is, where is it? We focus on a person's strengths, not on his pathology. Strength, we mean his talents. We focus on his wishes and aspirations. We focus on his abilities. We focus on his knowledge, his or her experiences. I always say that I know how to talk to cops. I know how to talk to police, which is not a bad achievement for a Black woman with dreadlocks living in Paris sometimes. I know exactly how to talk to policemen. What are my clients, the young people I work with, they know how to stay out of the claws of the police. They also know when I need a place to sleep, all I have to do is lie down in the street in the middle of the highway. Somebody will pick me up. bring me to the hospital and I'll have a warm bed for tonight. We focus on the person's strength. That does not mean we don't see the problems. We will work on the problems, but the focus is the strength. The biggest strength is the aspiration. What does this person want? What's your dream? Where do you want to go? And in all of my years of social work, I'm 63 years old now, basically at the end of the day, most of the people I have ever worked with, they want an apartment, they want a house, you know, they want a nice girlfriend or a boyfriend, they want simple things, they want to go to the bar, they want to go to a terrace, they want the simple things in life. And that's what we're working towards. But he has to be able to verbalize that. The first approach with young people, what do you want? I want you to leave me the fuck alone. I have to deal with that. I guess you will all recognize that. The fourth one, that'll bring me to the fourth one, the relationship between the young person and the caregiver is essential. Do you agree with that? I see hands. Your ability to make a working relationship, okay, I saw Stephen very quickly doing that. Your ability to make a relationship, to make a working relationship is essential. We all have our own strengths. I'm able to deal with, I will never give up. I will always follow. I'm a street worker. I will go in the streets at 3 a.m. because I know Hakim is sleeping there. I will bring him back. That's my strength. My colleague's strength will be, I can listen to his story. Very good. We build on our strength, but also on the other person's strength. The fifth and sixth principles of the methodology is we use the community. We use this person's community, which means who are the people who have a good influence on you? The community can be your mother, your brother. Guys, the community is also your dead grandmother. What kind of advice would your dead grandmother have given you if she was here, if she were here now? My grandmother would have told me, stop smoking dope and go back to school. Bingo. How can we help her? How can we put that into the work? So we're looking at the community, or I ask young people, find one person, find a cousin who has everything you want and bring him to the next meeting. How can I get this person involved into helping either Hakim or Betty or whoever? You use his community. The last one is the entire community as a resource. The entire community, which is actually the health, the support club, which means I don't know, the sport clubs, anything like that. If we can get them involved, Hakim and Betty and Max and Peter, they're all citizens. They're entitled to the help, and it's up to me to make sure that they get what they're entitled to. That's about all the time I have, I think. But basically, that is the mythology. How fast? My passion is really working in the streets with people, with the street prostitutes, with the drug addicts, and with the young people with or without mental health problems. But it does mean I have to be flexible. I have to be ready to go at 2 o'clock in the morning to bring him a pack of cigarettes, because if that's what it takes to bring him back into the services, that's what my team and I will do. But nowadays, almost all I do is give trainings and talk about it. And it's like, guys, I'm 63. That's good. I have something to say. That's my story. Loved it.
Thank you so much, Holly, and thank you for this passionate presentation and sharing your experience with us. And thank you very much for all the presenters, speakers this morning. I think it's been a great session. We have run a bit over the time. Thank you for staying with us, and we will break now for a 10-minute coffee break. and then come back to the breakout rooms that will allow us to have more interactive discussions. Thank you, and enjoy your coffee or tea.
Bye-bye, everybody. I'm off.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thanks.
Welcome.
Hello, everybody. If you are back, you can maybe turn back on your webcam so that we can see who is back with us or who's still on the coffee break. I think we have gone a little bit over time in the first part of the session with all those interesting practices we had. So we're going to try and make that time up in the second half of this training. So what I'm going to do now in a moment is break us all into breakout rooms. We're going to break out for about 30 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll have a very quick debrief, and then we'll pick up tomorrow at 10 a.m. Central European time. So we're going to go to breakout rooms for about half an hour. We'll come back for a very quick debrief. The purpose of this next session is more to build on the practices that we've heard this morning and to get you to start sharing perhaps what are some of the challenges that you face, or if you saw practices this morning, you think, okay, this is something I'd really like to try, to maybe talk about how could it be integrated into your service, perhaps what are some of the challenges, and then to get other people who are in the session perhaps to share their experiences and perhaps their solutions as well. So I'll be in one room, Dalma will be in another room. We're going to be sharing a link when you're in the rooms to like an idea boards link, which is where you can put in some of your challenges, some of your solutions, etc. And that would be a resource we can use afterwards to kind of pool together services and solutions that people have in mind. So I'm going to open the breakout rooms now. We're going to be there for about half an hour, and then we will come back together for a very quick debrief. And I shall see you all in about a half an hour, unless you're in my breakout room. So you should all be getting your links up on screen at the moment. And feel free to, perfect, you're all beginning to leave one by one, perfect. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this breakout session 1. I think we've got about 12 participants in this room. So maybe it might be worth if everybody just wants to go around quite quickly just to do a very quick introduction for who they are. I'm happy to go first to say I'm Ravi, I work for FEANTSA, and I lead on our work on youth homelessness. And I'm going to pass the floor to Stephen. Maybe to introduce yourself, and after you've introduced yourself, you can pass the floor to somebody else in the group.
Right, my name's Stephen. I work for the Rock Trust. I'm part of a housing department that's called Bedrock. So we look after some of the people 60 to 25 and help them into accommodation and help them with their independent living skills, and then eventually get them to that point where they're independent enough to move on to their own accommodation after a couple of years. So yeah, thank you. I'm going to pass on to Miriam.
Miriam, I'm not sure if your microphone is working. Okay, maybe we'll come back to you in a moment. Stephen, do you want to pass somebody else? We can see if we can get your microphone.
I'm going to pass on to Christine. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Christine. I work for Framework, which is a homelessness charity organisation, largely based in Nottinghamshire, but it also covers other areas of the East Midlands. So I've been working with the youth homelessness portion of Framework, looking at introducing PI and trauma-informed care in those areas. Thank you. And I'll nominate Emma.
Hi, I'm Emma. I'm from the Rock Trust. I am the health and wellbeing team leader, and I'm an art therapist. So I work with young adults, with Stephen as well in that same area, but we're kind of more office-based. I do therapy work, one-to-one work, and also group work as well. And we're working with ages, as Stephen said, 16 to 25. So yeah, I'll pass it over to is it Lin Wen?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Lynn Lacey. I work for Llamai. I work in South Wales as a homeless prevention officer with 16 to 24-year-olds who are all in temporary accommodation. And my aim is to get them into secure accommodation and to do the resettlement program with them to make sure that they maintain their flats. Yeah, and enjoy their new tenancies, basically it. And I pass you over to Carlo.
Yeah, okay. I'm Carlo. I'm a social worker. I work in a night shelter with adults. But sometimes we have young people with, and yes, sometimes we focus more with the problem of these people, and maybe we have to change our approach. I'm not very, it's just 3 years I work in this. So I have not too much to share, but I'm happy to be here. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Carlo. Would you like to pass the floor to somebody?
Yeah, I don't know how to do this. Let me see. Okay. Maybe Maureen. Okay. Hi.
Yeah, hi. Hi. I work for Rock Trust as well, and we work with young people 16 to 25. I'm the coordinator for a service called Night Stop. Night Stop is an emergency accommodation service where we use volunteers in their homes, and they offer up a spare room in their home. They provide meals and a listening ear to a young person who's homeless or at risk of homelessness. And they can stay there for a few weeks, maybe up to a month. And while they're in that home, we try and find more suitable longer term accommodation for them to stay in, and we support them while they're in our volunteers' homes. So I work in Edinburgh and West Lothian, which is just outside Edinburgh. Thank you, and I'll pass that on to Olympia.
Hello to everybody. I'm Olympia. I'm a youth worker, and the last month I'm working with ARSIS, Association for the Social Support of Youth, based in Thessaloniki, Greece. And I'm the project manager of a program of street work. We work with unaccompanied minors, and the new national strategy that permitted the protective custody and trying to work with children from the streets and take them to transit shelters and then to new homes, let me say. So I'm glad to be here.
Thank you very much, Olympia.
So I pass the floor. Yes, sorry.
No, go on. I was just going to say, I think Miriam's microphone isn't working. And I'm not sure who the last person in the group is. Somebody from Denmark, I think, but I can't make out the initials. If our mystery participant would like to introduce themselves.
I introduced myself.
Oh, sorry, Gaynor. I totally forgot. Sorry, I thought we had done everyone who had their webcams on. Apologies.
No, that's fine. Just I don't like this bit anyway. So
well, we were saving the best for last.
Did you say silent? Because I screw them under spotlight. My name's Gaynor Ansel. I'm a support worker, and I work in a hostel for young people. So we support 16 to 18-year-olds, really giving them a safe space and a vision where they learn the life skills that they need and go on and live independently, hopefully. And we work currently in a PI environment, but I'm finding that the methodology of PI doesn't always fit in with kind of the assessment process. So there's gaps in it, doesn't seem to kind of match up at times.
Perfect. Okay, well, thank you very much for sharing. I've just put a link into the chat box, and basically that's just going to be, the framework for our conversation. But the idea here is it's very informal. And so I think what would be good is if we can touch on these different topics over the course of the next 20-25 minutes to look at what are some of the major needs that you see in the young people that you work with. How do youth access mental health services, or how do you partner with others? What are some of the barriers people face? And do you have practices that address some of the challenges? So it's very much an open-ended question, but maybe not to put you onto the spotlight, Gaynor, because even though you just said you don't like the whole introducing yourself, but you touched on a really important issue there around how sometimes we hear on these trainings of services like PI and we think, hey, this is excellent, but actually the reality of integrating it into how a service has already been designed or the framework can be quite challenging. Would you like to share a little bit more about that challenge?
I think PI is fantastic. I like the approach. I'm finding I've been with my organisation for 8 months. I find it very difficult to get consistency across the team. So that network around a young person, it's hard to get that consistency. And it also is quite hard that the measurement system of success is totally non-PI. So whereas I strongly believe in PI and that safety and working from that young person's world and them bringing forth their strengths and identifying for themselves how they want to progress, the actual measure of progression by my organisation is non-PI. So they don't tally, they don't meet up, and my judgment of when my management are judging me to some degree on success, their measure of success is not my measure of success, and definitely not the young person's measure of success.
Okay, I'm seeing lots of people nodding. Christine, I see you nodding away. Do you have something to add? Or maybe an example of how you've overcome that challenge, maybe?
Oh, wouldn't that be lovely if I could just say one thing, how we've overcome
No pressure.
I think it does take a lot of time. And one thing that we have done is we put on a day, we did a PI for Commissioners Day, which made the service managers very nervous, but I'm a psychologist by background, and you tend to find that people aren't always sure what you can and can't do as a psychologist. So you sometimes have permission to do things that are a little bit unusual. But we got some really great engagement on the day. We talked about PI, we talked about the effectiveness, and we did include things about how commissioning for PI might be different. And we had Victoria, I'm not going to be able to pronounce the name properly, Asavitham from one of the London, she's a commissioner in London, and she did a great talk about commissioning in a PI way, in a trauma-informed and psychologically informed way. Internally, we're also starting to look at our internal audit processes, sort of review them to say, well, are we, if we're as an organisation trying to move to be more of a PI influenced, to be on that journey, we really need our audit to match up. But it does take a lot of time. So, but yeah, we've had very similar experiences, hence my smiling and nodding. But no simple answers, I'm afraid. But I think what we're also doing is offering training for partner organisations, and I think that's starting to make a difference locally. Even if it is just, trauma can be quite an easy way to draw people in, but whenever we do training, we always couch it within the PI approach. So we might be talking to people about working with, we did some training for GP reception staff about engaging with people in their work, people who might be experiencing homelessness, and we talked about trauma within that. We also shared with them the PI model. And yeah, so I think it's having those networks and being able to develop, that's our approach so far, but it is a work in progress.
Thanks very much, Christine. And not to put you onto the spot, Emma, as well, but I also saw you nodding when Gaynor was talking about some of the challenges. Is that something the Rock Trust has come up against in the past?
I think I was nodding more like I could see that, and then we're actually in our health and wellbeing program, we're rethinking our evaluation system as well. And so I just was relating to that's a good area to go off of and to keep in mind while we're in the process of working on our evaluation systems, and how to give feedback. I think, Yeah, I think one way that we're always kind of struggling with and finding the best way is like a space to give young people a place to have a voice and feedback in the organization, but also like, how do you kind of not over ask for things and ask for young people to do things that you're not, able to, like what kind of maybe do you give back to them if you're asking for their time and their energy and their effort to take the time to really engage with you, to really give you some meaningful feedback. You want to somehow credit them and not ask them to do that for free in a way, that you're valuing their time. So I don't know if that is part of your process too, that you're talking about with like evaluation systems and how it's pie related. But a lot of times our young people, I think, get a bit, some of the feedback is like, we don't always want to spend our time giving feedback all the time, so how to kind of do it in a pie manner where we're taking into consideration how much we're asking of them, I guess.
Does anyone have experience of that, of how you engage with young people in a more meaningful way, or that it doesn't feel like, is it a box ticking exercise, or Gaynor? You're on mute, Gaynor.
I just think you have to be adaptable. I mean, for myself, we're project-based, so we're based in a home, but we adapt to however the young person is. So some of them like to go on a walkabout, and we have walk and we have talk. Another young person loves cooking, so I do a lot of our conversations happen around when we're cooking and he's doing. Some of them like a game of chess, so it's amazing how much for some of them, if you're doing and you're busy, then the conversation, the dialogue, you can have all those honest, you can kind of explore their world with them, and it's not, because it's not formula and formulated, they feel at ease and it's just natural. And this is where we're looking at, aren't we? We're looking about relationship healing. So it can't be a false, it has to be as natural as possible. So it's kind of finding what their interests are. A craft session, we've got a really great room with there's loads of resources, and one loves just doing craft. So yeah, I think it's about being that adaptability and flexibility. But my experience is within a home, a hostel, so I guess other people have very different experiences if they're doing the night work or going outreach. So that's just mine.
Yeah, I find that really interesting how you said about the flexibility. Like in our job, me as a support assistant, for instance, like yesterday, I was moving a young person into a new accommodation from a shared flat. So they were sharing with another 2 young people, possibly care leavers. They're just learning how to live that little bit of independence, and possibly going to college or maybe working. And then the young person gets to move on to a single accommodation. So they get to start living on their own, start paying for electricity, start a little bit of responsibility, start having to cook for themselves. And the budgeting side of things. And then, yesterday I was painting a wall with them, just a great way to break the ice. I started working with this young person. So it's like painting the wall, never painted a wall, never painted. You get the emotion, you just take them through the little bit of instruction on how to use it, and, away we went. So the person-centered approach is brilliant. I find it very, very, beneficial when it comes to working with the young people, and just like the little bits of conversation that you might come up, when you're talking away, what are you getting up to the weekend? Do you keep in touch with family? How's your friends? What about, you're working, what's your future aspirations? It's just really good to be able to build that relationship with them whilst doing a practical activity. I really enjoy as well letting the young person take the approach, so let them take control of the situation. So for instance, when I'm first building a relationship with some of the young people, I'll be like, well, you're from Edinburgh. Okay, I don't know Edinburgh as well as probably you, so maybe you could show me some things in Edinburgh. So it's almost like, oh, do you know this place in Edinburgh, this castle or this place? Oh, right. Well, yeah, I'd love to see it. I'd love you to show me, and it's just really it breaks the ice in a way, and it gives them some kind of control over the relationship. Also, when it comes to cooking and things like that, it's good to get them involved and get their mind active and get them really involved in their approach to what they want for their future. And I kind of see it as maybe they might have a cloud in their way, you know, because trauma and whatever's happened to them in their life. And if you can somehow facilitate them to be able to reach their goals, so they might not see where they can go, but you can see where they can go. So it's like the little suggestions, but then they can make that decision on their own, whether that's, you know, a safe avenue for them to go down. So yeah, I really think it's a great way, that kind of person-centered approach and the flexibility and being able to, you know, take that time with them. So it might be that some young people get used to a weekly visit, and that kind of gives them some structure within their support plan, as it was. But then sometimes some of them don't like that rigid routine where it's, you know, I'll meet you at this time every single day, every week. Well, it could be Monday. How are you for time this week? You know, do you fancy a walk? I've got a grant. You know, we get quite a lot of grants, clothing, and different household items and stuff like that. So it's like, I've got this grant. Do you want to spend it? And especially coming out of lockdown as well now, a lot of young people dealing with a lot of social anxiety, and really just trying to get them out again and get them socializing with people and getting them back into the general population and getting to speak to people again, and that shopping experience. And yeah, I find it is a really good way to get them engaging as well. So I like to sorry, I'll just one more. Someone said something about resettlement before. I don't know if it was Llewyn. I love your accent, by the way. I just love the Welsh accent. Yeah, I think you said something about resettlement. Is that, I'd like to hear a bit more about that.
Yeah, with the resettlement side of it, we take them on the sign-ups to sign up for their new tenancy. And then we just kind of find out what's around the local area, making sure that they know where the GP surgeries are, the shops are, where they need to pay their bills. Any local, I mean, obviously during lockdown it's been difficult, but usually then we kind of take them to any clubs that need, you know, any clubs that they wanted to go to, and just integrate them with the community, really. Get them to feel comfortable around the area, because it could be that the young person doesn't really know that area and just need some guidance. And then we usually stay with them then for a few weeks until we feel that they are managing their tenancy okay. And then we just come away slowly. But we've got an open door policy as well, that they can contact us at any time if they get into any difficulties, so we can go back out and support them further.
And do you find many young people come back to you after a few weeks, and there's no issue with them, fear of coming back? They're quite open with it. They are. I think a lot of the issues we have with young people is they think it's quite easy out there, and then all of a sudden they've got their electricity, gas, water, TV, food, and they're living on benefits, and it's kind of, oh my God, I haven't done this, I've got a red letter for that, how do I do this? I've got a repair that I don't know what to do about. So yeah, a lot of the young people come back around, maybe once, maybe twice, and then usually then they resettle, they settle fine then.
I think the project I work in, they have core accommodation services, which is mainly for the 16 to 18 or 16 to 19-year-olds. But they stay in the core accommodation services, and then they move to a managed tenancy. So where the framework is the landlord of those tenancies. And then from there, they're supported into their own independent housing. But the staff that they work with, it's the same staff team that works with them through each stage of that. And that's really valuable. And to be honest, I mean, they then sometimes, you know, they say to the young people, even at the end of all those years, You know, if you ever phoned us up, we're not going to hang up on you. We'll find you some support. So it's almost like they can have that, you know, that familiar face, if you like, or the familiar team, the familiar phone number for years, really, which, you know, probably many of us here, when we moved out of our parental home, perhaps we would have had that someone at the end of a phone. It's such a valuable thing, isn't it? And I think, yeah, look, I think it's incredible that we have 16, 17-year-olds who are managing their own tenancies. So, you know, well, 18-year-olds, it's incredibly young for all of that responsibility, really. And you also want them to have fun and to develop themselves as a person and not just be surviving all the time. Yeah, yeah. I was thinking about the power of shared activities, like the painting the wall example really made me smile. And I sometimes have staff who will talk to me about young people where they feel like they would benefit from some trauma therapy or mental health services, but actually that's not where the young person's at. And actually all of those activities give so much. And we sometimes end up saying, you know, this is trauma therapy. You know, having things that they enjoy, things that make them feel good, things where they're developing skills. You know, the person who's painted a wall might go on to become a really successful painter and decorator, or an artist, or not. They might just paint their own room one day. You know, it's all those possibilities. And I think that's really what trauma therapy is, really, for many of our young people. It's that kind of, yeah, just, I think building their identity is a big part of what our services want to try and help young people to do.
That's absolutely brilliant. Sorry to jump in. What Christine said there about, you know, that identity just struck something with me. So, you know, I joined the military army at 18, spent 13 years and, you know, I left. So that transitional phase, I had an identity in the military and I lost it when I left. And it was almost like my values that I knew then, I had to somehow switch it into knowing how to have a new set of values and a new somehow identity. And I struggled for a couple of years having to try and find that, you know, but also, you know, a lot, as you were saying, that therapy, you know, Emma, art therapy, she, you know, she does an amazing job within the organization. And it's like, sometimes the therapy itself is just knowing your new values, knowing, you know, that life skills. And, you know, sometimes I look at it and I go, right, you know, that kind of that life coaching, that life skills. And sometimes that's a good way in the direction. You know, there could be a need for that mental health treatment or mental health therapy, or, you know, for them to do that, talking therapy. But sometimes, you know, I do see the benefits within like learning those life skills and having an idea of boundaries and living in the world with people and what is acceptable, what's not acceptable, you know, So the identity side of things.
Can I ask Emma? Can you say a little bit more about your work?
Yeah. I'm an art therapist and a transpersonal psychologist. I'm actually going to be giving a little bit of a talk on it tomorrow as well. But I'm totally it's not a spoiler. Don't worry. But I think what you're saying too is like true. I mean, there's, like you were saying with trauma, and like you're saying, Stephen, too, with like trauma and everything, having an activity to do together can be really, you know, beneficial. We all kind of know that, like, instead of sitting across the table from someone, sitting next to them or going for a walk with them, beside them, is going to be less like, for lack of a better word, triggering, but I don't know, I hate that word. Sorry, not triggering, but it's like, it's more inviting, isn't it?
It's less intimidating.
Yes, thank you, Robbie. Thank you. Yeah, so I think you're right. I think, like, when it comes down to it, it's just relational, isn't it? But also having activity to do together helps to bring your focus and then helps to build confidence and other, and a lot of traumas we know is in your body, so doing something together.
Yeah, like I was in my work with FEANTSA. I'm also a coach, and I was reading an article by some big fancy executive coach who gets paid hundreds and hundreds of thousands of euro to coach senior executives. But he had this article in the Financial Times recently saying that like what he does is psychotherapy, but he would never frame it as psychotherapy because business leaders and executives would shy away from it. But he was like, it's how you frame it as coaching and development in these terms that are really, really accessible and invite people in, but don't necessarily turn people away when they think, oh, this is really intimidating, or there's a stigma associated with it. And so I think that's really important, that it's not that everything has to be like a formalized session. It's a game of chess or a walk or a painting a fence, and you kind of start those conversations. Gaynor.
Yeah, the other really important thing, I think, is the power differential. Because if you're going into their world, you're reducing that power differential. If you're saying, can you come into this room and have a sports session with me? Can you come and have this counselling? You know, a lot of our young people won't enter counselling. They see it as it's too formula, it's overwhelming for them, it's too structured, it's very much on the world's terms and not theirs. But I think meeting the young person where they're at and going with something that they're interested in, and the incidental contact that you can have depending on your setting, it does reduce the power differential, and that's really, really important to empower.
Yeah. I think we're actually almost really out of time in case it cuts out.
I really liked the open dialogue for that reason, the power differential with like medication. Sorry, Robbie, I thought that was interesting.
No, we have about a minute left, so feel free to get out whatever you can at the moment, but there's always a tomorrow session as well. If anybody has any last comments they'd like to make.
I just want to say, I work with people just for a short amount of time, and after a few days, like Holly said, you don't want to push them into things too early. They come in crisis to me. But after a while, I think they have low self-esteem, lack of confidence, and I like to push them a little bit out of that comfort zone, because instead of me buying into all their kind of feelings of, you know, I can't do anything, I just kind of sometimes push them a little bit, and it makes such a difference, you know, just knocking on the door saying, why don't we introduce ourselves to the next door neighbor? No. And I just.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. I think everybody should be joining back in from the 2 breakout rooms. Dana, I think what I might do is just kind of very quickly summarize some of the key things that we discussed in our group. It probably isn't going to be so different to your own, but I think what we focus more on are practices and ways that we can meet some of the challenges that young people face with. And I think the main thing was learning how to engage with young people and to meet them at their level. So rather than formulating everything as formalized counseling or your therapy or sessions, to start at a really kind of basic level where you're having conversations with people and you're having those types of activities like playing chess, going for walks, cooking, and then through those you begin to have meaningful conversations and you get to build that level of trust, and then you can start to move people towards services that really meet their needs. But it really being a person-centered approach, I think, was the key thing that came out of our session. And we have an ideas board that I was filling in, so we'll share that with people after the training as well, if they want to get a deeper idea of things that we discussed. And perhaps maybe just say one of the challenges that we found was we hear about things like psychologically informed environments, and they're great, but the reality of integrating them into services can be quite a challenge, because as a service provider, you might be running PI, but perhaps your senior leadership team, or however you evaluate the service or how the service is funded by grantors, it doesn't how they measure success doesn't always align with success through a psychologically informed environment evaluation. And so that's definitely a challenge that people flagged. Jam, is there maybe some points you want to raise from your breakout session?
Yes, thank you. I think we did talked about the person-centered approach as well. putting the individual, the person into the center of the organization, the interest and not the interest of the institution and organizations taking over. So that's why it was stressed that we need to change internally the system across, because the system is traumatizing as well, the way it's organized, the wider system. And yes, and we just also talked about having the right access to the right support at the right time when the young person asks, and discuss some of the barriers to that. I think that's it in a nutshell.
Perfect. Thanks, Dalma. I don't think we're going to keep you any longer. We've already gone over time. Just to say, we're going to start again tomorrow at 10 a.m. Central European time. So that's 9 a.m. for the Irish and UK participants, and it's 11 a.m. for our more further Eastern European and Finnish participants. Tomorrow's sessions are going to focus on more practices that look at how services can empower clients, and I think if you're in our group, Emma gave a little insight into how our therapy works in their session. So we're hoping that tomorrow kind of gives you some practical ways that you can run services within your organizations. Same time tomorrow, the same link should work, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye everyone, have a nice afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.